So let's continue in English. And let me know, Frederick, when we start up. Just give me a thumbs up.
Yeah, I think we'll wait just a few minutes.
Yeah.
People to join. We are still expecting at least 10 people. So, but
Yeah, it's
it's 4
Tuesday
o'clock.
afternoon.
Yep, but it's 4 o'clock, so I guess you could start, Alan.
Yeah, and I take it that we are recording, right? Yes, we are. I can see that. Perfect. Let's kick off this webinar on test automation. I would like to say both good morning, good evening, good afternoon, because I realize that we have attendees from almost all over the world in each time zones. A little practical before we start. The Nordic team has been preparing for this test webinar, and we are very excited to welcome all of you to this 45 minutes webinar focusing on test automation. If and when you have comments, questions, inputs, please use the Q&A, and we will monitor the Q&A section, and we will respond to you as soon and as quickly as possible if we are able. If not, we will collect your inputs, and then at the end, if we manage, we will open up for questions. Otherwise, we will try to answer your questions and comment on your input afterwards. Again, very welcome to this test automation webinar. We will be following this agenda today. So the first couple of minutes, we will give you an introduction to who is Next 365. And then following that, we will deep dive and double click on the testing framework and automation of testing. And we are very, very happy to be able to give you a demonstration of a new, I would call them a new kids on the block, test automation tool, Elevate 365. And then at the end, we will give you an insight into the licensing configuration, the services that we provide along with the test automation, and then some recommendations for next step. Again, welcome to this. Let's continue with Next 365. Who are we? What do we do? So the focus is from our side on F&O, or supply chain management, the Dynamics platform, and we are experts in advising and giving specialists dedicated to accelerate your journey with the 365. We work independently and exclusively on the client side of this, as normally we call it the glue between the SIs and the client. We help you increase your competences, enhance your governance and your organization by supplying specialist and advisor to your organization. So what we do is that we empower you to accelerate the business value, both on your cloud journey, but also when you are going to operations. That we can illustrate with this, let's call it framework or journey of your cloud transformation. So we try to approach the projects in different stages, and maybe you can recognize where you are in this stage. or these stages. But as you can see, we have testing in some of these stages, but in fact, we think that testing is important almost in all of these phases of your cloud transformation. So again, what you can expect from Next 365 is that we help you empower your organization with architects. It could be D365 enterprise architects, solution architects, both the functional architects, but also the technical architects. We have senior specialists in many of the different areas of the application, and also specifically on test and quality enhancement, training, change management, and test management in the governance area, along with program managers and strategic advisors. That we do almost all over the world. We are rapidly growing consulting company. Started out in the Nordics, very soon expanding throughout Europe into North America, and lately Australia. And recently, we also have New Zealand welcoming on board. So we are able to support you almost all over the world. And that we are already doing with some of these clients that we are very happy to be able to work together with. With that, I will hand the mic over to you, Bjørn Ove.
Thank you. Thank you, Allan. So we're going to talk a bit about the testing and the framework of testing in the different phases and the challenge we see. So here you can see we have the different phases, we call them, for when we are testing. And I guess you are recognizing these phases, and depending on how far and what type of level you reached in different testing in your testing work, I guess you can recognize some of the tasks and so on in this slide. So I was thinking, going through a bit high level. I'll go back to the previous one here and just say what the important part here is, kind of when you analyze, checking what you are supposed to do. You are going through identifying what you should test, why you should test, and have some criteria around that. Kind of sums up and guides you through the selection of tools you're going to use when you are going through your testing and planning and designing your testings. And these tools can be manual, they can be automatic, and this is a bit part of what we're going to talk about today on the automatic ones. But I think we're going to see that all the testing kind of adapts to the context of the different things you find in the analysis of your strategies as well. And the next one. So the state of testing now shows really we are increasing the complexity of our testing. We are increasing the multiple the different systems we are using. We are having multiple systems talking to each other and so on. And the changes coming up with new releases are bigger and they come often. And that's one of the challenges we see when it comes to testing, is actually keeping up with the new releases and ensuring that we are ready to get the new release into our production environment. Next one. Now, as many of you know, there are some challenges when you're doing manual testing, and we outlined 4 big ones here, I think. And the one is it's time consuming. So the people who are doing the testing have to click through everything manually on each scenario. And often these are the same persons that do the day-to-day operations in your business. And often these testing happens in peak periods where everything else needs to be done. Now this includes, so when we are testing, we also are prone to human errors for different reasons. Humans aren't perfect when you click and try to do stuff. We tend to get tired, we're bored, distracted, and easily lose focus when we are doing testing, especially if it's a task that we've been assigned and don't really see the value of. And scalability limitations are, as the company strategies and requirements evolve over time, so does the systems to support them. When the system grows, the interaction complexity also grows. And now, without a good methodology and methods to kind of cover these combinations of manual testing will fall behind, and you risk missing critical interactions and testing those. And the final one is the inconsistency of test coverage. So we plan in the beginning to test a certain amount of tests. We have a hectic day, and when we start testing, we might not have time. We do have issues with the errors, and we haven't updated our scripts. So keeping the coverage complete is tough to do, and it's easy to overlook different scenarios that we should focus on. And in a hectic day, it tends to be that we may focus on our main operations and main functionality to test, and we forget the smaller ones and the ones we expect just to work. So in key, manual testing isn't just slower, but it could be riskier, more expensive, and less reliable, really. So that moves us over to the next slide. And that is, what should we automate and why should we automate it? So we have multiple tests in that. I think some of you might recognize some of these tests, and some tests are a bit strange. Not everyone is familiar with unit testing and exploration testing and so on. So when should we automate and what should we automate when it comes to testing? Well, the big part is regression testing, as we saw on the previous slide. Updates come frequently, and we need to test what's new and ensure that the new functionality and the new version from Microsoft or other vendors work in our environment and with our tests. So we do regression testing. Often we do high-level testing, which is smoke testing, but when we automate the testing, we are really enabling an end-to-end process testing. That means we don't have to just test in a specific system. We can test across systems and ensure that the coherence between the systems actually work. And we end up with an end results that are in relation to where we started in our test scenario. And we got some questions. So if we do regression testing and there's new functionality, should the automated test pick them up automatically? Well, we do need to do some manual testing, which is still exploration testing, which is really going through the new functionality and check if that's something we can use and if we should implement it in our different processes. Now, depending on how you are or where you are in your process, in your implementation, if you are still implementing your systems, I would say also user acceptance testing is something you do manually because you need the users to validate those partitions. Yes, that was that. And I think we can skip to the next slide. Yeah.
That was the introduction. So now we switch screens. Please take over, Bjørn Ove.
I will. Give me 2 seconds and I'll just reorganize here. Like that. So today we are actually going to show you, as Ola mentioned, we're going to show you a new kid on the block. I think this is an exciting product. with a lot of opportunities and functionality moving forward. So Elevate 365 is a test automation tool that allows you to create a test library and run tests on different applications, not only Dynamics, but all web-based applications out there. So in this application, you can see I have up here, we have a few main menus. We have a library, we have a scenario, and we have results. Now, library is where you define your different tests and you connect them to a application, and the application, you can set up whatever application you want. It could be Dynamics applications, finance, warehouse, supply, supply house, that was a hard word, and CE, and different ones. You can set up your external VMS systems, you can set up store commerce, you can set up web shops, and whatever you need. Here you can define those as applications, and as long as they are web-based, it runs smoothly through the recorder, and you can do the testing recording. We'll also mention that there are a new release now coming up where we are able to also test some Windows applications. So it will not only be web-based applications in the future. But in your library, you define different environments, so you can run the different tests on different environments. So that means you can do some testing earlier, so you can run it through the development boxes to verify if a new change has come. You can verify it actually specific test cases work still. You can run it through UAT. You can run it in production environment. So you can use this tool not only for testing, but for other purposes as well. So it's a lot of functionality in it. Now, each test is created here, and you can link those into a hierarchy of folders, so you can group them and as you want. When you start using the application, you can create a test based on in 3 ways. So we can import task recordings. So those of you who have been working in Dynamics Finance might have used task recordings. These can be imported into Elevate. You can also sync, if you have a RSAT set of libraries, you can sync those in as well, which is a good starting point when you get ahead. Otherwise, you will do a recording of your action. So if I click now on the create test here, I can create a new test. When I create a test, I select a user, and this is a quite good thing, because when you're running an end-to-end test scenario, you tend to have multiple roles doing different things, and by creating a test for specific tasks in that scenarios, then you can control which roles execute those tests. Now, this is the window where I will create my test. I just initialized the test by clicking Start up here. And what it does is it logs on to, in this example, Dynamics Finance. It logs on with the user I've selected when I created the test, and it already knows that the user is set up with MFA, so it supports 2-step authentication automatically in here. So now that the test has initialized, I can go in and start my recorder. So the way I create my test, and I do apologize for a bit small window within the browser here, but the test actually records anything I do within this browser. So it be clicking on any of the boxes that it identifies when I move my cursors around. You can see the red boxes around them. It will capture any clicks or actions I do in here. I can even change the URL. I can log on to my web shop. I can log on and do whatever I want. Everything is captured through the recorder. Now, I'll create a very simple example. I'll just create a test where I will create a customer group. And as you see, as I navigated myself towards the customer group, it also captured all the steps I did to get here. And I click New, and I will enter a ID. I'll call it Group 1, and I will give it a name. And you can see as a type, it also captures it here on the left. And now I click Save, and I've created a test. So that's how easy it is. You just log on to the environment, you start the recorder, it captured what you're doing, and you stop the recorder, and you created a test, basically. Now, there are multiple things we can do with the test afterwards. As you saw, the values I added are hard-coded, but I can alter those to be variables by going in, saying, okay, I don't want this to be a hard-coded value because I want to run this test repeatedly. That means I need to create a variable or actually do add a variable value to it. I just selected one here from my list. That means the next time I run this test, it will use the value from this variable. I can then very easily add a step in my test to manipulate that value, that variable. And this is really nice when you have a set of tests running in a scenario or a plan. That means I can have one variable I'm using in my first test, manipulate that, either set it, increment the value, set the value, or pick up values from the browser, any field in Dynamics or any field in my web shop. I can assign that value to a variable, and then I can use that variable in my next test. So that allows you to do a proper end-to-end test with actually using the values of the first test and looping through all the way to the end, where you can verify the result based on the data went through that flow. Now, sometimes when you get tests and you are in operation phase, and of course your process changes and you need to alter some tests and so on, so it's fairly easy to go in and say, after I give it the name, I should really do something else. And then I can add steps manually. Most of the cases, I would just click record from here, and I can just continue my recording and change or add to the process I have. And then when I'm done, I'll just click stop, and I've altered my test according to my change in process. Now, these tests, as I said, we build up tests, we run them on specific users to ensure that we are following the correct user and security roles in the applications we are testing. And after building a set of tests, we really want to run them in a plan or a scenario. So a scenario is just a group of tests I'm going to run. I created some scenarios here, so I'm just going to show you one of these. And here you can see I've added one test, which is create the customer. I just added a delay for this one. So say I was testing in one system, I know I have an integration between that system and the next system. I can add delays to wait for those integrations to run, or I can create a test which runs those integrations manually. And then I have a second test below here, which actually uses the customer ID created for the customer created in the first test. So I create a sales order for that one in the second test. That's how I can build up my scenarios to complete a end-to-end process testing in this tool. Now, we said we can run these tests on different environments. We can run this on different things, but the thing is, mostly we test when we have to, and we're not really testing what we should and how often we should. So by setting up these scenarios, we can either trigger them manually by clicking play, or we can schedule them here in the application, but we can also link them to DevOps. So this is one of the strengths I think is pretty cool, that you can actually, based on the different scenarios I have here, I can export those as a YAML file, which I can set up as a pipeline in DevOps, which I can trigger. For instance, I'm installing code into my UAT environment every Thursday afternoon. When that release pipeline has run, I can then trigger a pipeline that will trigger again the different test scenarios. So when I'm back at work on Friday morning, I can go in either in DevOps and see my test results underneath test plans and runs, and see how the different tests went. Or I can use Elevate to also see the results there. So I'm just going to click on one I ran earlier. It went fairly bad, as you can see, but I can go in and test results. And here you see all the tests I created in my scenario. It pops up here, gives me the status, and it will also give you a bug after a while. So if a test fails, depending on the owner will get a bug created in DevOps based on it. Now I can also see the results here within Elevate. I can see the different results of the tests. Here we can see single tester run, and here we have a scenario run. Now I can click on any test. I'll just click on a scenario. Here we see it passed. Gives me when it started. It gives me the time it actually ran, which I can compare for each time I run the test to see if any changes are, if I included a new functionality, how does that really affect on my process and my scenario. I can also go into the test and actually get a video of the test run here. So on the left side, I'll see all the steps in my test, and here I can see a video of actually performing the test. Now, if I have any issues with the test, these steps will be red where it fails, and it will actually capture the error message that pops up in the application as well. I'll see if I can go to one that failed, if it failed here. And here we have one that failed when I clicked collapse, and it couldn't find the collapse one. So easier way to really do the testing. Instead of performing all your tests, you perform your scenarios, it runs automatically. You come back and you focus on the status failed. So it kind of changes for going through all the tests and then just go through the ones that failed and focus on those. Now, this was a short introduction on how it's built up, how the tests are created, and how you can combine them into scenarios, and how you can run them in Elevate 365 application and in DevOps and see them there. And I think there's some questions that popped in.
Yes, do you want to take them right now, Bjørn?
Yeah, I think we can take them now.
Okay, the first one I think Frederick already answered, but then the next one, what is the main difference and benefits between this tool and, for example, Executive Automats? Do we have any highlights in what is the difference between the two tools?
Not sure if we have many highlights on it. what I can say, this is as being a new tool, it's kind of based on AI and a new technology, if you like. I'm not saying Executive Automate is not at all. However, it's built in more AI functionality in here. We didn't mention it, but there are functionality that are able to correct. Now, when we tested it for a while, changes in the application can make a test break. It happens. Fields are moved and things are changed, so on. However, there are some limited AI functionality in here that help repair those tests. So if a field is moved, change labels and so on, it actually captures it has changed and replaces, so we can refine them. So a more maintenance, the maintenance level it's a bit smaller here.
Yeah.
I think that, yeah.
Okay. Well, this is not a comparison webinar, so sorry for that question, Bjørn. We'll come back to that. Then the next, there's a long question on the next one. One of that is the license model, and I will come back to that right after. But then, is it possible to build test scenarios for intercompany transactions?
Yes. You can build tests and scenarios for everything you do manually. So when you're testing intercompany transactions manually, creating in one company, change it and work with them and verify them in the other company, it's possible here. So you just set up the tests. As I said, they run on different users. You can have as many users you want in here. You define the test doing a specific task, or you have a test doing multiple tasks, but with the same user role. And as we saw when we created or recorded a test earlier, we actually go into Dynamics or into the web application you are testing, and you're able to do everything you could do in a manual way as well. So, and it still will capture anything you do. So changing companies and going and checking values and so on. And I guess that's one of the things I didn't mention here, but these variables, you can actually set them up to verify data as well. So creating one transaction in one company, you can move over to the other company. You can actually verify the values being correct as you expect according to a posting setup and so on.
Great, thanks. Then there's a two-way question about performance testing. How is the performance testing compared against the baseline, and can a simulation be done for performance testing, i.e. simulate 20 users doing the same thing at the same time?
Yes, for now, there are no simulation for multiple users. You can run the same test and the same scenarios as many times as you like. So you can trigger them, trigger the scenarios or test as often you like and run them. So that's kind of the level of load testing and for now performance testing. I would say performance testing for lots of users at the same time is not part of this release, the version we have now.
Okay. And then the last one before we finish up or ramp up is there any scripting support, access to dynamically update the variables library in the test run?
Yes, so you have access to the library of variables during run, so you can modify and access any variables you set up across applications as well. So you can use variables set in one application in a test belonging to another application. Regarding scripting support, we actually got a question earlier today if it's possible to trigger webhooks and things like that. Yes, it is, as long as you do it through the web browser. As currently, I know they're working on a component to do this, and that kind of touches us into also the area of components, which I didn't mention earlier, but All these steps we have, we can combine them into components and reuse them across tests. So if you have a specific test or specific set of steps you do in multiple tests, you can actually create a component for it and then reuse them in tests. So, and I do apologize, I didn't mention that earlier, but we do have a set of default components in here. So you might have seen when we logged on, it actually logged on with Microsoft Logon with MFA. It's part of a component, but I can also use other things. So I have Ask AI, so I can put in a component, I can ask AI, and the result can be saved into a variable. So, instance, give me the date of the first Friday every month, or the current month, and it will give me that date, and I can put that into a variable. I can upload, download files, I can modify files, and so on. So the library of components or commands, they are growing as each version is coming out, and you can create your own components and reuse them across tests here. And I'll take the scripting part further to the developer and check with them. But I know if you can trigger it through a web browser action there, then you can do it. But
yeah,
coding in here, it's I haven't seen that one yet.
No, okay. I think that concludes the questions and inputs we have from the chat. And if we have not answered fully, please come back to us, and we will share our email addresses after the webinar, and we will conduct a more comprehensive answer to your questions. Thank you, Bjørn Ove. I will take over the screen again, I hope. And try if I can get it into presentation mode. There we go. So we had a question regarding licensing, the configuration of licensing. So Elevate 365 is licensed in a way that is, to my understanding, very easy to understand and to adopt. It has unlimited test executions. It has unlimited instances and unlimited users. Also, it has unlimited test scripts, meaning that you buy licenses per sum of 50 scripts, and that is shown in this slide here, where you can see that the licensing is combined by a base license, and the base license is either one from the finance and operations, or one from Business Central, or customer engagement or customer insights. So it needs to be the first license being the base license, and in the same way as D365 is licensed from Microsoft, you can then add one or more attached licenses at a lower price. And then you can see underneath that the integration licenses, so there's examples of the standard integrations. Those are scripts of 50 per pack. Service offering, coming back to the framework that Bjørn Ove showed earlier in the webinar, we have come up with an example of how to get started with this test automation. So we offer you a scoping workshop that is in the prepare stage, and that scoping workshop consists of what you can see here in the square. What's the color? Bluish square. And the deliverables from that scoping workshop in week 1 is that we will come back to you with an updated test strategy and an updated plan, confirm your test scope, validate the estimate. And then if you haven't selected the tool yet, we will help you in how to select the tools that you should continue with. And then we will also help you in the negotiation, the licensing fee, or finding out how do you need to buy these licenses. And we will give the participants of this webinar a fixed price of 3,000 euros or whatever is corresponding in your local currency. And then you can get started with this scoping workshop. That will give you an example of licensing and services. So for a 3-year contract with Elevate 365, the base licensing, for example, with a Dynamics F&O, the finance is 11,050 euros per year, and it's a software as a service solution. And the attached license here, the example is supply chain management, 5,530 euros. And then in this example, you have a sum of 50 test scripts, which is 1,920. That gives you a total of 18,500 euros per year for a 3-year commitment contract with Elevate 365. And then services, again, if you go with the workshop, the scoping workshop, it's 3,000 euros. And then according to our experiences with the implementation that we have done so far with Elevate 365, the implementation, including hypercare, is between 20 and 25,000 euros, of course, depending on the complexity of your application and your environment. That concludes our webinar. We are still 4 minutes from the end. If you have any more questions, any more inputs, please put them in the chat. I think I do have one. Yes. Are you ready to run over?
No, I think actually more explanation of and elaboration of the performance testing part to do. So an explanation on how one of those performance testing could be done, and that you can run and schedule these tests simultaneously or in intervals to verify. So yeah, hopefully that gave more to the answer previously regarding performance testing. Yeah. But I would say, yeah, we had a short introduction to the application and tool. So if hopefully it sparked some curiosity, and if anyone wants to see anything more detailed or more complex, so reach out to us.
Yes. Thank you very much, Bjørn Ove, and thank you everyone for attending, and have a great day or great evening wherever you are in the world. Take care. Bye for now.
Goodbye, guys.